Welcome to Design with Impact, the podcast for interior designers who want to create beautiful, healthy spaces with intention and purpose. I'm Alex, interior designer, mom, entrepreneur, and educator, and I am truly passionate about sustainability. After seeing the amount of waste our industry creates and learning how everyday materials can impact our health, I completely changed the way I approach design. And now I want to help more designers do the same. Each week, through solo episodes and conversations with industry experts, we'll explore sustainable materials, healthier homes, and circular design, along with practical strategies to reduce waste, grow a sustainable business, and market your work with intention, so you can create real impact without sacrificing aesthetics or profitability. Because sustainability isn't optional, it's the future of design. Welcome to Design with Impact. I'm your host, Alex Shield. Today we're speaking with Valentine Awad, founder of GreenSocials. She founded her business on a slightly counterintuitive idea that social media used intentionally can be a tool for reconnection rather than distraction. Through her creative studio, she partners with purpose-driven founders to build communities that actually mean something to their audience and to the planet. Hi, Val. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
So excited too. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So you talk about social media as a tool for connection rather than distraction. So I love this. It's such a refreshing take. What led you to build GreenSocials around this idea?
Yeah, I think everyone sees social media and kind of its downfalls, especially lately. It has definitely like an addictive aspect. We go on social media, we want to scroll, but I think it's a multi-dimensional world. So many different platforms have so many different tools within them. And especially recently, this is a work that I've been implementing more and more with my clients, just like trying to build real communities online, because I think this is like the main goals of those channels is to be social, to be connected with people that you wouldn't be
Social
connected
media.
with. Exactly, social media. And
Yeah.
we forget that, right? Because they are built in such their teams have worked so well to make the tools so addictive for us. So good job on them. But that
Yeah.
also means as a creator that we have this opportunity to use them in such a different way too, a way that is more connected. If you think about me, even like 10, 12 years ago when I was like moving to a different country, my first way of connecting with people was actually through Facebook groups, those private groups of expats. And that's how I found like some of my best friends abroad. And still like a few years ago when I was feeling isolated in Sydney and I didn't have many like entrepreneur friends that would relate to me on a day-to-day basis, I went to Instagram, I searched for keywords like freelancers in Sydney, and I found an amazing community of people that are now some of my best friends in Sydney. So there is such like an advantage to these platforms that we don't otherwise have real access to. Like we wouldn't be able to find the same people in real life. So that's something that I really try to implement too with the work that I do with purpose-led businesses. How can we be at the forefront of these amazing people that want to care for the planet as much as they do, and via DMs or via specific groups, events? So I do believe, while yes, we see social media now and we're like, okay, that is the tool that is to the, I guess, downfall of our isolation and like our disconnection. There's like so much power to them. And yeah, we can all kind of use that to our advantage.
So it's really interesting because you and I found each other on social media. I can't remember who followed who first, but anyways, we found each other on social media. And I'm in Montreal, Canada, and you are in China. Where are you in
In
China right
China,
now?
in Wenzhou, in the south of
Okay.
Shanghai.
So, you know, it's it's so cool how it can bring people together and build this community. I have a lot of friends too that I've met over social media who are in different places. I have a good friend in Colorado who we met, over social media. So It is very cool. And I am also building a community through social media, and I see how incredible it is for that. I get overwhelmed when I think about posting, what do I post, and being consistent. But when you think about it from a community perspective, it's like we could really do a lot. And I love that.
Absolutely.
So what drew you specifically to working with purpose-driven or sustainable brands?
I didn't always, my journey to entrepreneurship is not linear at all. So my journey, similarly to like purpose-led businesses, is not linear. I studied biomedical engineering, always thought I was going to be a product manager in a big biomedical company, or, in Europe, not even in Australia initially. Moved to Australia, started an account. I was vegetarian, I was an activist. You can call me an activist back in the days. I was just very defending my values in front of anyone that would hear me, basically. First, it was my family, my friends, and then it was online via vegetarian recipes, but also talking about like some demonstrations that people could take part in, to defend the environment. All of that was in an environmental context. And started an account when I moved to Australia, sharing my recipes. Didn't think it was, I thought it was just going to be a hobby. And it actually grew a little bit to the point that I thought, if this can be monetized in any way, maybe I can do the same type of work for businesses. And so I started working as a content creator, or like a social media manager, you would say, for businesses on Upwork, really offering my services to anyone that would hire me. And after I think it was like 4-6 months, realized that I was working already with a few clients. And I realized that I was not passionate at all by just selling, X, Y, and Z products. I was becoming very bored of just selling to sell on social media for these businesses, and realized quite quickly that I needed to make a big shift in how I was presenting myself and what type of clients I wanted to attract, because I understood also early that if you don't position yourself in a certain way, you're not going to necessarily niche down to the people that you want to attract. So yeah, started to niche down, and that's how I created GreenSocials, to only work with businesses that are green, that are eco-conscious, that are trying to do better for the planet, for the people. And it took a little bit of time to get to a point where I was working 100% with businesses that were doing amazing things. But now, for a few years, we've been just 100%, strict about the type of missions that we want to support. And yeah, I've never been so fulfilled in the type of work that we do. Like, it really does show that as a marketer, or as a creative in general, I'm sure you can relate, like when you're not, uh, 100% in line with your values on the projects that you're working on, like it's quite impossible to create good results for your clients. So it ended up being like a very beneficial decision too for my clients.
So this is really interesting. I just recorded another podcast interview with a footwear designer, and we were talking about building a brand based on your values. And it's funny because you feel the same way, I feel the same way. And for me, it was the same. I started off, just taking on any type of client because I needed the work. And then, slowly it was like I was afraid to niche down. I think I was afraid
Mm-hmm.
to say, I only do sustainable design, I only do healthy design. But I realized that when a client would come see me and say, um, oh, but it doesn't have to be sustainable. In my mind, I was like, but yes, it does, because I can't unknow what I know, and these are my values. And so therefore for me, it has to be sustainable. So it's been a really interesting journey in going from like, yeah, I'll take on any client, to like, no, you know what? You're really not my client. And I really only want to work with the people who share my values, who want the healthy, sustainable design. But and again, and now they're starting to find me. They're starting to come to me. So again, I think it's important to you know be true to your values, and yeah, niche down. If that's what you believe in, then build your business around that. And I love that you've done that. And now that's what you're seeing too. These are the people who you're working with, who are finding you. So
100%.
I love that.
I think it helps in all the ways. Like niching down to the values that you want to represent helps you in also the processes that you're going to be putting into place.
Mm,
Like you're probably
yes.
more sure about like the types of businesses for materials that you're going to source, or you're going to be certain on like the type of, I don't know, like certain processes in the work that really just flow when clients are on the same page and you don't have to convince them constantly about doing something. It helps in then also obviously your how you present yourself online and what type of language you're going to use online.
Mm,
So yeah, I think it's overall like an amazing way, like niching down, and just going back to a certain alignment with yourself. It's just an amazing way, more like harmonious way to do business.
mm-hmm. I love that. So a lot of designers talk about, or they want to talk about sustainability, but they don't necessarily know how. So they're afraid they may turn off their potential clients or just have people tune out. It can be an overwhelming topic for some people. Not everybody's interested. So why do you think sustainability content often doesn't land on social media?
I think, I don't know if you agree, but sustainability, eco-conscious, purpose-led, it's when you're niching down, like you have to almost use those words to be able to communicate who you want to attract. But to a certain degree, they're actually going to deter a lot of people from listening further to you on social media specifically. It's still great to use those terms on like certain website headers or banners that really do make sense, but I still think that it shouldn't be the main part of your communication, being sustainable or trying to work towards a better world, because over the last 10 years it's been on at the forefront of a lot of businesses that unfortunately were greenwashing the whole time, and in their communication they deceived so many people. It's been shown that now using those terms actually leads immediately to mistrust, even though the company that is or are using those terms are not. Probably they are doing amazing work to, better their products or their manufacturing processes. But unfortunately, just using those words or focusing on those words is not going to lead them to the reaction that they would want. And I think we almost lose that the concept of what social media content is about too, when we try to focus on like sustainability or like ethical manufacturing. I think it's great to like show in some ways what are the decisions that you want to make for projects. I'm thinking for interior designers, like it's amazing to show, like in your situation, Alex, when a client came to you and was like, you know, I wouldn't mind going for the unsustainable option. But for you to maybe explain in like a content piece, like this is how we went from this statement to like a statement that was more in line with sustainability. And by, talking about X, Y, and Z, we were able to come to that conclusion. I think that talks about sustainability without having I guess, the boring, stuff. Like
Mm,
people just don't care anymore. They care
yeah.
about saving the planet though. That is very important. Like still people are active or trying to do their best, but having those like concepts kind of hammered on social media and content and things like that, it doesn't actually move the needle. It doesn't increase your reach on social media. Like that will not do the
Okay.
type of, it will not have that kind of intent that most people trying to communicate on this value are trying to have. So I would
Okay.
say don't move away from sustainability at like altogether in your content, but think about ways to talk about your decision making without just like having just showing the label we're sustainable and then that's it, moving away from it. I
Okay.
don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, definitely 100%. So what are okay, so there's I guess the language and the messaging. Are there any other mistakes that you see designers making when they're trying to communicate their values online?
I think designers, interior designers, but also other types of designers, like graphic designers, anyone really in the creative space that are trying to make, original decisions for very customized projects. What we're trying to show and what we want to show is like the outcome of our work, like the end results of our work. So we focus a lot of our time on aesthetics online. We show like, the just the end highly professional images that show everything was great and everything worked out perfectly. But I think we're missing, especially now, where, you have AI slops everywhere. Like it's just everything is AI, everything we hear about AI, we see it, everything is becoming so professionalized. We need more of that authenticity, even though I hate this word
Mm,
because everybody is using it so much, but it is true. What we need is more humanity, just personality. And so, what can we call personality and authenticity for interior designers, for example, is what I was talking about, like those decisions, like everything, all of the processes that come into play when, you know, carrying a project. What are the things that maybe you've realized throughout your career that customers are doing in a specific way and that you want to change or that they want and that are not necessarily the best option for them? Things that I think don't just show what is possible with just like end product like photos, but show the whole process, like just bringing, I guess, people more into the behind the scene of what it takes basically to come to that end result.
okay. I love that. So the journey, like they want to know more about the journey and the in-betweens. So then
Exactly.
how can designers start talking about sustainability in a way that feels more authentic, more engaging and relatable, I guess, to their audience?
I think, I mean, talking about it not from a certification standpoint, like something that is just trying to define what is sustainable. We see a lot of like designers trying to just, you know, showcase, okay, this is why this furniture or X, Y, and Z is more sustainable. I think that unfortunately is not a super engaging way, but that is kind of the first content piece that we're gonna turn towards because we think that we need to kind of explain what sustainable is. I think people tend to be attracted to things, content pieces, and things in general that make sense and that are convenient, that are budget friendly. So really trying to put yourself in your audience's, shoes and their what we would call in the marketing world like their pain points. What are their
Mm,
pain points? And maybe talking about sustainability from their perspective, which is like, okay, your clients, they probably care about budget. That's probably one of their
hmm
number one worries,
One
but
of the main
also
things.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
but they probably also care about deadlines. They maybe care about like your process and how you work and how you communicate, the types of partnerships that you have. I don't know. Like I think talking from talking about sustainability, but always pushing that, kind of layer towards what they need and what they want. For example, that's something we talked about actually together was that it would make more sense for someone to invest in a more eco-friendly piece of furniture, for example, that is more sustainable because on the long term, that would actually cost them less.
Mm,
It's not a calculation that they see upfront, but that's something that you
right.
can show with content. So that's
hmm
educational content that is not typically your carousel post with like, this is how we do interior designer projects here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the process. It actually shows like in a reel something that is more. It doesn't need to be super edited, by the way. Like it can feel very human and very real. But just showing, like, I was talking with a client recently, and we actually came to this conclusion together. Like, look, on a 10-year timeline, this would cost like a fraction of the cost of that other product. And then showing possibly like the end result too with the room and how beautiful it looks too, because that's what they care about. So always putting yourself in the shoes of the target audience. I think that's important. And that's how I think we can think, first of all, about sustainability.
Okay. So then can you share, I don't know if you have an example or a case study of a sustainable brand that's doing this really well, and how can we learn from them?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about, I don't know if you've heard of FIA.
FIA? Like FIA?
Yeah,
Okay. No, I have not.
PHIA. It's
PHIA. Okay.
it's a AI shopping tool. So
Okay.
AI shopping tool doesn't scream at all sustainability or anything like that. AI sounds almost like an oxymoron of sustainability nowadays, because it, to a degree, is. It was founded by Bill Gates' daughter, Phoebe Gates, and Sophia Kiani. And these two women are incredible activists in the environmental and female leadership world. So they have, I understand, like a huge background, not just background of knowledge with the people that they're surrounded with, but also network, which definitely helps their mission. But they have done, if we think about communication and like content creation, they have followed what I think is like what we need to also use to educate ourselves on how to communicate about sustainability. If you look at their website, their content, their everything, they do not mention sustainability at all. Like it's not, you have to go really into like the details of their about section to understand who they are about. You have to like listen to them on podcasts to really understand also that they are activists themselves. But what they realized was that if we lead with sustainability, no one is going to be actually interested, because it sounds almost too hard. Like being sustainable, we've been sold this idea of like, do this easy swap, and then you realize it's actually a little bit harder than that. But with tools like what they suggest with FIA, they are trying to, they're using the idea of convenience. The only thing that FIA does is like propose, you go on, you can add it on your browser. Instead of buying that piece of fashion that you were going to buy, FIA will propose like a second hand option or a cheaper option via a different website. Yes.
That's so
Isn't that
cool.
crazy?
I've never heard of them. As soon as we get off this podcast recording, I am looking them up. That's amazing.
Yes,
That's what I
it
need.
is. Yes, it absolutely is incredible. And they managed to talk with a language that makes sense for everyone, like everyone that is actually interested in fashion, high designer like pieces, but also like your kind of day-to-day pieces. I'm really promoting them right now, but
That is so cool.
In the concept of sustainability communication, I find that they are an amazing case study, because really it is that underneath, it's really the layer underneath that is the most important in their mission. Like but they don't talk about it, because they are going to focus on the convenience of it, the price tags. They're going to focus on Gen Z language being super culturally like timely. They're going to react to every trend that's going on, because they want to amass a big audience, which they've succeeded to do. So yeah, I think that's FIA is a good case study to kind of to see what sustainability communication can be without actually at all mentioning sustainability.
I love that. And so I recently redid my website. And while I was going through the process of redoing my website and looking at what language I wanted to use and what I wanted to promote, I didn't know if I should use sustainability and eco-friendly and healthy design as sort of the headline. I didn't know if I should be, sort of pushing this, or if it was a background thing. And, my focus is more on, I don't know, creating homes that are functional or that are cozy or that are family oriented or that tell your story. Or so there was a lot of reflection, I guess, that I had to do. I don't know if I picked the right thing or not because it's still new. It launched in the fall, but I ended up deciding to go with like full on. I do sustainable design. I do healthy design. This is what I do. These are my values. But then when it comes to social media, I found that I wanted to do the opposite, and I wanted to talk more about, and I've talked a lot about sustainability on my social media, but I wanted to talk more about the storytelling and how, choosing vintage and antique pieces bring character and charm and can tell a story. And so I realized that I wanted to focus more on that in terms of social media. So I feel like my brand is constantly evolving, but I find it hard to to know what's interesting is that people are now finding me on Google, on ChatGPT, and they're seeing that I do sustainable design, and they're filling out the inquiry form on my website, and we're having a discovery call. And so I love that the people who are looking for sustainable design are now starting to find me. But yeah, I feel like there is some type of a balance. I've seen a lot of websites where I know the designer does sustainable design, but it's not really mentioned on their and it's more of a, like you said, like in
Mm-hmm.
the about section, or you have to kind of really look for it. But so yeah, it's interesting. It's hard, I
Yeah,
find, to find that balance.
that balance. Yeah, exactly. I think
Yeah.
when you think about like niching down, structuring, especially a website that has so many different elements, that can be so hard to define. Like, okay, what is that limit to how many times I say sustainability or
Yeah.
eco-friendly or, but I think that actually whenever you're trying to define yourself, it's very important to use those words, because the reality of a website is that you're trying to be fine on Google, you're trying to rank high, so you've got to use some like either meta tags or keywords that are going to be in that niche. So it does make sense to use those words. And
Hmm.
probably that FIA is also using those, keywords in certain places of the website that we don't necessarily see. So very
Hmm.
important to still use those like niche adjectives and keywords that do make sense for your audience, because that's really the only way that you can differentiate yourself on oversaturated platforms, or like internet, like Google. It is super
Yeah.
hard to get ranked high, so you need to
Yeah.
use those. But on social media, it can be a different story. You can absolutely do it.
Hmm.
For Instagram, for example, you can pin your post at the top, and it can mention in one of those carousels where you're introducing yourself, like that you work in sustainable design. Definitely. It does
Hmm.
not need to be like the whole story every time that you show up on
Yeah.
social media, though, like giving people more substance with your personality, with the way that you work, with your decision making. I think that does make a difference.
If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to grab the Sustainable Design Starter Kit. This kit will help you to quickly and confidently implement sustainability in your business through a materials cheat sheet, checklists, and client ready scripts. This kit will help you design more sustainably without the overwhelm. You can find the link in the show notes. So then what type of stories or content tend to resonate most when it comes to sustainability? Are there specific angles that perform better? You talked a bit about from an interior design perspective and looking at the journey and the behind the scenes, but what about sustainability specifically?
I think what actually works really well, and that's a concept that was, I don't know if you've heard of like green hushing, green shouting, all of those kind of
No, I haven't.
words.
Tell us.
Th- Well, greenwashing is like the concept for companies in reaction to greenwashing,
Okay.
not actually wanting to talk about sustainability in any way. And so the brands that were doing amazing did not communicate about what they were doing. And then green shouting is actually a concept that was developed from, I think, Creatives for Climate, in collaboration with the B Corp. I hope I'm saying their company name right. I think it's called Creatives for Climate. And green shouting is really what they define as like, don't shy away from like everything that you can share basically about what you're doing in that realm. So what it includes really, and I completely agree with them, is I think the most engaging sustainability post that someone can share is their learnings and the, I guess, not so glamorous or like not so perfect pieces of the journey. Learning that you've been doing something that is actually unsustainable and you didn't know, or the radical transparency of, I'm really trying to do this, but it just doesn't work. Like budget wise for my clients, they do not approve it every time I propose it. And it just is something that does not land, although I've been trying. So being really transparent about it, I think really helps people realizing that you're really trying. I mean, and the sustainability world, like no one is perfect. There is
No.
not one company out there that is doing things perfectly. So I think, yeah, just being completely honest and also bringing people into your behind the scenes of how you're trying to correct it, I think is a great idea. People love to see like a coming of age story. They love to see people, starting a process and being with them on the journey. So I think that's like a great way to yeah, create like almost like a series of content that people will follow as like a show. I think those, yeah, are probably the most engaging ways to share about sustainability right now, which is probably not like the, I guess, more like type A perfect sustainability story that we can think about, but it's the more, I guess, yeah, honest one.
So that's really interesting because I feel like as an interior designer, as a business owner, I wouldn't want to share my mistakes.
Yeah,
But I think too, there is no, and I say this all the time, but there, like you said, there's no perfect, there's no 100% sustainable solution. And I think we're just doing the best we can with the information we have, with the materials we have. And then I will learn new things on every project. And then now I know it for the next project. So maybe I missed it on this one, but now, all the future projects will have this, this element. But interesting that
exactly.
sharing it could be interesting or valuable for people too. So maybe I will
Absolutely.
share more of that. We'll see.
Other people will react or engage with it because maybe they can relate to it. I think a lot
Mm,
of the content pieces that we connect with on social media are pieces of content that we can relate to a certain degree. Like we laugh
yeah.
to a meme because it made us think of someone, or we are like really, you know, impressed by a project because we didn't think we could do it in that way, but we see it in that type of work too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's always a good idea to just show the honest truth of each project, even
Everything.
though it is hard
Everything.
and it is
Yeah.
a process
Yeah.
to become more vulnerable to.
Yeah, for sure. So, for a designer starting from scratch, what does a simple but effective social media strategy actually look like today?
Okay. So starting from scratch, no followers, you're just
Mm-hmm.
going for the first time and creating your account.
Yeah.
I think first making sure, as we talked about before, like we talked about on like website structure, bios, headings, or anything like that, you need to have like a good profile infrastructure. You need to use like a bio if we're talking about like an Instagram or a Pinterest or a Facebook account or a TikTok. You need to have a bio that really defines you in a simple way, that defines what you do and who you do it for in a few words, because unfortunately those bios aren't so long. They don't allow for a lot of space. Um, Once you've done that and you've added a nice profile picture, it doesn't necessarily to be a logo, by the way, even if you're, a studio or you want to be seen as more of a professional, people actually, it's been shown more and more that people react and engage and follow accounts that are more like actual photos as like the profile pic instead of a logo, just because it's more human. So every
Mm,
point that I'm talking about really so far is like how to make the process more human in all the ways. And that also includes the profile picture. So your bio, your name, everything is kind of optimized to attract your niche. Now I would say you need to define, before you start creating any content, you need to define what we call content pillars. It's like content categories that will make you, what are the things basically that you want to be known for? So it can be 3 to 5 maximum content types like that you would want to like create, and that you feel you have like a large number of ideas per pillar. And once you've decided on those, you can start creating. And I would say to not really focus too much on the number of posts. Like I need to be present Monday to Friday, 5 times a week at this time. I think that is a hot take maybe, but in this era of everyone can post very quickly, more quickly than before, with AI, just not having to create carousels yourselves and things like that. That is actually the time where I think you should spend just more time on writing, on thinking about the post, on how it will land for your target audience. So we're not defining a frequency of posts like 5 posts per week. If you can have a frequency of like 2 or 3 posts per week, I would say that's already good enough, especially if you thought about them in a thorough manner. And once you can't, any marketer out there that thinks that you do a content strategy, you start posting, and then everything works out, says so. Like it won't actually work that way. You need to like have repetition. You need to create data points. That each post is a data point that you can then analyze in 1 to 3 months. After you have a pretty big list of data points of posts, you start seeing certain patterns, like the content format. Are people reacting more to like static posts or video posts? Are they reacting more towards like that kind of messaging or another type of messaging? Do they react more when I have a lot of text on my slides or less text on my slides? Even colors, to be honest with you, I think like we can think a lot, certain people do at least, think a lot about the messaging, the copy that they're going to use. They don't really care about the packaging of the post, like the design of the post, even though like a video, what you're saying in the video is like incredible and you're teaching so many things. If you're not starting, unfortunately, with like a hook and like a visual, even sound, like anything that is sensory, that is different in a sensory way, you're not basically putting a lot of attention on the packaging of the post, and unfortunately that messaging is not going to land. So thinking also about that and seeing patterns when you're analyzing your content, I think can be quite good. So yeah, defining your content pillars is number 1, then starting creating. Don't be too, set on being perfect. I know I've just talked about like trying to make sure your packaging is good as much as your messaging, but all in all, like we are in this rare opportunity right now where people are so fed up with just very professional content, things that are sounding too professional almost, that they just want to have real connection with people, this relatability in content. So you have a lot of like room to mess up and be human too. So just enjoy, create content, and then in 3 months, review everything and see some patterns, and then continue all over again.
That's so good. I'm taking a ton of notes. This is really good. So to go back to posting for a minute. So I get very overwhelmed when I try to think about, I need to post this many times per week, even if it's 2 to 3, because if I'm behind on... So, I mean, social media is a job in itself, right? And
Yes.
you're an entrepreneur and you have your business, you have your clients, and then you have social media. And so when we talk about consistency on social media, what does it really mean? Does it really mean 2 to 3 times a week? Like, I feel like this is where it gets overwhelming for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think consistency is overwhelming. And especially because like 6 years ago, the way we would describe consistency is completely different to what we would describe now, but people don't have really digested that new definition. So they still think that they need to like produce and produce and produce and be active as many times as possible. While obviously posting anything, a reel, a carousel, is going to create a data point, which is great. You're trying to create more. It's not necessarily going to increase your reach or your engagement by much. So it's not actually going to increase your website traffic and everything that you're really trying to do on social media. So the most important thing that you can do, especially when it's time sensitive to create content, is to focus on consistency around your branding and around your messaging. Like, who are you trying to attract and how are you trying to present yourself on social media? A lot of people, when they get comfortable, it's not that easy to get comfortable on social media either. But, when they get comfortable and they're like, okay, I can talk in my stories now and I can just like, yap all day and, talk to my audience. They're
Hi,
gonna
it's me.
Me too, by the way.
Yeah.
You're gonna talk about things that are probably not related to the work that you do or the type of audience that you want to attract. Obviously, there is a certain, extrapolation that we can do across everything. It's good to have human content to show your behind the scenes a little bit more, but you don't need to show all of your life. And also you don't need to reach for every trend that is out there. Like a lot of my clients initially working with me, like when they don't understand really that I'm not against trends, but I just think there's a time and a place for them. And they would share trends with me. I would be like, I can think of a million ways to like adapt it for your target audience, but really they're not going to react to it. It's not part of their way of thinking. So I think, yeah, trying to not maybe think of the just online space as like an open space for everything, especially when you're a business owner. Sure, if you have a personal brand, I would even actually say for a content creator and influencer, like there is a certain limit to how many content pillars they can have. And it's the same thing for business owners. Like, yeah, having a certain consistency in the messaging in what you're trying to share is I think very important. So not focusing on the quality of the content and on the type of problem resolutions that you're trying to bring with your content is more important for sure than the amount of
I love
posts
that
per
you say
week.
that. It's so refreshing because I've spoken to a lot of social media managers and they always want to do what's trending. And I'm like, but it's not me and it's not my brand and it's not, and I'm not here to just get random followers. I want to attract the right people. Um,
Absolutely. And you don't
so
want to be viral to the wrong audience. That's actually a
yes.
big inconvenience to any business. If
Yeah.
you get a virality on a post that is attracting the wrong audience, you're going to get a lot of subscribers that are not going to be at all interested with what you're going to share next about your project. So what is going to happen
Yeah.
is that any social media platform, the way that they're built, if most of your audience is not going to react to that piece of content, it's going to flop completely.
Yeah.
So you've actually sure gained virality on the one post, but you're going to lose any chance of engagement or reach on your following posts. So that's why like making sure that you're consistent in your branding and your messaging, in your problem solving is extremely important, and not just hopping on any trend that you think is good.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So then you emphasize building community over just growing an audience. So what does that look like in practice for an interior designer?
Okay. I think if we talk about content creation, that's only one piece of the social media puzzle, really. Like you've got the whole side of it, which is like social. And especially when you're from scratch, like building an audience, trying to increase your followers or the people that you engage with, you need to have that social aspect. So what it truly means, and what I also like to say is like an audience is a completely passive entity, whereas a community is an active, reciprocal, entity that you can really engage with in your DMs, in your comments. So it's a very important tactic to use on like a weekly basis. What I would say is like try to identify a few people in your industry that are trying to do the same thing as you do. Not necessarily like being an interior designer, but trying to do good. We're talking in a sustainability way for sure, but maybe if you work in like the wellness space, try to look for people like service providers that are in the wellness space too. Try to look for brands that are working in the wellness brands. And go into, their latest posts, go into the followers that liked those posts, and try to see people that you would genuinely think could be a good friend, people that you would actually like to engage with. And don't just like their posts, but interact with them via DM or react to one of their stories if they shared a story, something that is genuine. And the point that is the most important is like someone that you would want to hang out with in real life, like someone that you would want to be friends with, because it is going to be a DM relationship. So it's someone that you're going to have to interact with in the future. And obviously, if you don't typically enjoy what they're post or what they're about, you're not going to carry that relationship further. So you're really trying to build those nuggets of like community or like relationships in the DMs. I would say like you don't need to do that more than 5 minutes a day. I think that's enough to like interact with a few people and then just log out. But at least like you've already started to be more active. Also, if we just talk from an algorithm standpoint, like showing to Instagram that you're not just posting and then leaving the app is very good for you, because that just shows like, okay, maybe you're, I don't know, sharing a reel to someone, or you're responding to someone's comment, or you're commenting on other people's feeds. So you're an active member of social media. And so whenever next you're going to share something, it's going to probably appear in their feed first. So that's also very important. So I would say, just identifying those people that are great friend quality or community member quality. And then, carving out maybe 5 minutes in your day when you're like on the treadmill walking somewhere. I think that's a good way to do it.
And I think 5 minutes a day is manageable, because when I think about, having to go on and do things on social media, it just gets overwhelming and I get distracted and all the things. But if you go on to focus 5 minutes, put a timer on, I think that's manageable.
Yeah, for sure.
So then how can people or designers attract clients who actually value sustainability and not just aesthetics?
Okay, well, that I think goes back to the sort of content that you're going to share. If you're going to share content pieces that are educating people on your thought processes around a specific material or product, and why you decide to choose this, because not only is it sustainable, but it's also like more long-term, affordable. I think that's the type of content that would then land on a values mindset. Like people would be attracted to that kind of content because it just then makes sense for them. And so, sharing about more of the behind the scenes of the process, and we're going back to the same things, but like, showing your thought process, your, behind the scenes process, the journey of A to Z with a specific client, I think could be a good way to talk about it and still not disengage your entire community about it. But it would still like interest the core of who you're trying to reach, which are like potential customers.
Yeah. Okay, so then if a designer listening today wants to start showing up more confidently on social media and talk about sustainability, what is one thing that they should do this week?
Okay. I think they should probably look into the last like 3 main decisions that they've made for a client or maybe multiple clients. Write them down and think, have I posted about it ever? Have I, if it's like a real, maybe it's a decision that has been made a few times for several projects. Maybe it's a question that you got asked several times. And when you write it down, so 3 different items, when you write those down, you see that actually you've never talked about it. You've never done a post about it or a blog post or anything really online, like a newsletter. I think that's a great place to start with one, and then seeing how that kind of resonates with your audience, and then you can share the other two. But I think just analyzing what you've done a little bit in the past, writing down your lessons from it too, I think is good, and sharing it away.
Okay. So, what is one shift you think needs to happen in how the design industry talks about sustainability online?
I think that we can start treating it as the norm. It is the baseline of what we do. And we can stop being afraid of getting everything wrong, especially in the realm of sustainability, because we know it is a hard, it's hard processes to put in place. It's maybe harder materials to find, harder products to find, but treating it as the baseline, it is part of your values. You don't need to share about it constantly or for it to be always top of messaging in your content, and just share honestly about your journey, just not being afraid of sharing the truth about your journey around sustainability, I think would be like the biggest shift.
That's amazing. I love this. Val, I wish I could speak with you all day. This is so good. You have given
Thank
us
you, Alex.
so many good tips. Thank you so much for joining us.
My
Before we
pleasure.
go, if our listeners want to connect with you, if they want to follow you, if they want to work with you, where can they find you?
They can find us on the GreenSocials website, green-socials.com, or follow us on Instagram, green.socials.
Amazing. So I'm going to add all of this in the show notes. And
Thank you so much.
thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. That was amazing. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to follow the podcast, share this episode with another designer so we can make an even bigger impact, and leave a review so more designers can find this podcast and we can continue to grow this community. Also, I challenge you to take one sustainable practice from this episode and incorporate it in your business or your next project. And I want to know what it is. Send me a DM over on Instagram at designwithimpact_. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for being here.